Me and a couple people are trying to make sense of it as well. Let's get rolling, dude. Welcome to the China EVs and More podcast. We will open the room up at around the 40-minute mark to anyone who's keen to ask us any questions. So feel free to post them into X, LinkedIn, or YouTube. In the next hour or so, my co host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discussed today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. Now, Lei, I don't think in the 4 years that we've been doing this that we'd have ever thought we'd start off with talking about politics and tariffs. But um, for those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. We ask that you smash those subscribe and like buttons so you don't miss anything from us in the future. I'm confident that Lei and I are two of the most knowledgeable people in the world doing this. So help us get the word out about this show to others. My name is Tu Lee. I'm the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at signalautoinsights.substack.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Lei, a thinking about tariffs, Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
uh, a downer day, Lei. uh, yeah, good morning. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review, and this is episode number 205. The how do we describe this? The U.S. throws a jab, China returns with the uppercut. Is that how it felt like? 34% coming
Yeah,
out this
but
morning, this tonight, and then the reason we're talking about tariffs and politics because it's Trumponomics, right? Because Trump is office. So these are the things that we were expecting, but how serious it was or it was going to be, nobody knew until now. And that's where we begin with. Uh,
it's wider and deeper than many
anytime
people thought.
before, and anytime before, even in the first term. And because the way China fought back immediately, it wasn't even a chess move. It was a punch. It was a direct punch back. Uh, and especially on the on the auto side of it, we've seen some actions from Ford, from Stellantis. Ford announcing that employee pricing is kind of interesting. Uh, and then Stellantis had to cut jobs, I think, at one of their plants. And then the tariffs. I mean, with respect to,
Lei, that Stellantis announcement was likely going to happen anyways,
anyways,
in
right?
my mind.
Yeah,
So
and put 10,000% tariffs on China. And when it comes to the autos and EVs, it wouldn't have mattered, would it? Because the U.S. and the North American market is, I mean, the U.S. market in particular is in the way back burner for now. Uh, doesn't mean there's talks going on, but uh, and as we've seen the March sales numbers and more incentives coming out, it's about domestic consumption, I guess. And
well, it's reshoring.
yeah, no, I'm talking about the Chinese, kind of the Chinese
Oh,
economy, and um, where autos export are going, given this new backdrop.
and I think the important thing that I think many people starting to realize is that we can't look at the trade deficit between the United States and China. We also need to back into what gets shipped from Mexico. A large portion of that is by proxy from Chinese suppliers. And Trump administration number one had encouraged this. Now, Mexico has a new leader, but could they have anticipated that if we take all this foreign direct investment from Chinese companies, that the United States government may scrutinize this? I guess they could have, but this is the deal that Trump put in place, and then he blows up. And it includes computers as well. So it's not just focused on the automotive space. And I don't know. The whole point is to get Canada and Mexico back to the table, I suppose, to try to close loopholes, to really bolster where parts are coming from once they're bolted onto finished goods. But I don't know. There might not be companies that are able to move factories within the 4-year time frame, and things could change wildly after he leaves office.
That's exactly the point, because of thinking of how, well, from Trump's point of view of how easy it is to bring manufacturing back. He thinks it's easy, but it's not. And so far, even Tesla still, I think sources like, I don't know, significant, less so than the other automakers, but significant parts from outside of the US, even though they're the most American made. And not only the seriousness of these tariffs, but I'm sure there are going to be tons of memes coming out of how these numbers came about. The formula, right? Have you heard of the herd in McDonald's Island? I have not. I heard it was occupied by penguins only.
Okay.
So those are the kind of the memes, and right, the formula of calculating the percentages from the trade deficit divided by the value of the imports coming into the U.S. from those countries, and then take 50% off that. I mean, that's it's that's the part that's
it's the like the movie Everything All at Once strategy.
Yeah.
And so we are the beneficiaries of free trade. A lot of things that we buy here traditionally have been affordable.
You know what? I think I'm gonna stock up on rice today. We eat so much rice.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, to be honest
we
with
love
you.
some of the rice. There's a brand that come out of Japan that we usually buy, so we might have to stock up on rice.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, there actually, you're right. There was an article or a post this week about people getting upset at H Mart because of. Do you have an H Mart near you?
Yes. Not near
Okay.
me, but around the Boston area. So
Yeah, so H Mart is a Korean supermarket.
yeah.
And for those of you that are from California or know California, there's a Ranch 99 chain of supermarkets. Now, so little did I know this, Lay, but I was told we were saying it wrong the whole time. So everybody I know in California calls it Ranch 99. It's actually called 99 Ranch. So, but we still call it Ranch 99. So,
well, we know is it's got 99 on it. So, but I mean, yeah, we. I mean, we're going off script here because we should be talking about China EVs, but
here's the important thing. So there's a huge trade deficit between China and the United States. Okay. And you had said earlier, China wants to transfer or evolve from being the world's manufacturer to domestically consuming a large portion of what it manufactures. They've been promising that for a long time. It still hasn't happened. And so with the United States slapping 100 over 100% tariffs on many goods, mostly automotive parts, but the pressure to find other markets for that capacity is going to be tremendous. And this is why there's fear of this
You-
global trade war, because I think these smaller countries, these other countries that aren't in the EU, they're concerned about getting products dumped into their market.
So I'll give you an example of how our family will be personally affected. Is that my wife buys these on this platform, group buying, and then all the packages shipped from China. There's actually pretty cheap, shipped to one person's house, and then people go over there to pick it up. Now, with that new rule on the $800 and below packages, right, is also applying the tariffs. That cost goes up for us. So, uh, you know, so yeah, everybody is affected one way or another. Uh, and the EVs, right? You talk about 100% EVs, right? You add on all those additional 20%, 34%, the 25%, the 25% on Venezuela oil, right? It's over 200% on China EVs. And who hurts the most? Again, we said this last episode. Now, one of the companies, BMW, not only are they adding affected by the new import tariffs from European Union, but also the new 25% autos tariff. And then exporting from the US to China, you add the 10% that China added, plus this 34% announced today, right? So it's yeah. Uh,
I haven't
I don't
done
know.
too much research, but I feel that the Chinese tariffs are largely symbolic because I don't know. Was there a list of things that we export to China? I don't think there's much.
No. So yeah.
So,
Uh,
one
yeah,
important
it's
note,
difficult to at a loss for words, really. I mean, how to
one I was reading an article this morning, kind of playing catch up. I've been traveling the last couple days, but it, the article stated that the United States effectively put this global trade system in place, and now it wants to blow it up. So when in totality, when I think about it, yeah, we should reshore some things strategically from an economic standpoint, but also from a national security standpoint, for sure, without question. And I think that my hope is that he truly feels that this is the best way forward, and he's not along the way trying to pay back certain countries, certain people, certain leaders. I hope that the administration as misguided as many people think the trade policies that he just launched are.
yeah.
My
Well,
only hope is that he's really doing this for the betterment of the country. But
which is not at this point. No, I mean it's uh, what he promised when he was running, right? That's not has not happened, at least for the short term. And just listening to some of his cabinet members talking about this math and it's yeah, I mean, doesn't make sense. We lost some of it. We've lost common sense, I think. So
So, how about March sales?
well, how about it? I mean, March was supposed to go up compared to February, and everybody did. Just a matter of who did more or less, and we're kind of seeing the separation of groups of where they play along the. If we see the rankings, right, the
Yep.
list, and BYD is they're just up all the way over there, and then we have the next group. We have Tesla. We have to separate Tesla on its own because of what it has been able to achieve. I think nearly 80,000 in March was good in my book. I know a lot of reports saying that they were down, and but remember, given that they had this refresh Model Y and really only one model market for Tesla, and they're in this bubble of protection from the Elon's distraction outside of China so far, and given the competition, so still resilient. I'm telling you. And then Neil is in the news quite a lot recently. Uh, and then we have a bunch of these. I think maybe we call them the Fab Five. I can remember Xpeng, Xiaomi, Li Auto, Leap Motor,
Seeker,
and maybe we add GAC Ion. These are the ones that are doing 30,000 roughly, more or less.
Zeekr, no?
Well, Zeekr, no, not yet. I think Zeekr, I think they were like 15,000 in
Okay.
March. And then we have the three state, not state owned, but the the Geely, Cherry, and Chang'an. They're kind of a rivalry.
Hmm.
And then the rest,
And
right? It-
it's important to, when you make that top five lay, talk about GAC Ion. I would venture to guess that much of their sales go to fleet, and uh, GAC Ion and Leap Motor are going to be the lowest on the pricing totem pole. Xpeng is probably next, and then Li Auto is going to be on the high side. Um, but
yeah, and then Neo at the top.
right,
So I think we're seeing some separation and of where these players rank in terms of how consistent they're doing on a monthly basis, uh, and awfully a high hill to climb, if not impossible, for Neo because they're maintaining their goal to double sales and break even in Q4. This is reiterated by Li Bin recently. While he's putting in that cost uh, reduction measure in place. So I've just saw this morning that they're probably cutting jobs again. They just changed CEOs at the Armo brand.
yep.
I mean, what do you think? I thought he was kind of scapegoated in a way because he was there for Alan I. He was there for 4 years. He's an outsider, but I mean, the thing that did him in was promising 20,000 in March and not achieving it. So if it was me, I'd probably resign too.
Well,
It's
you and
almost
I
like,
thought that
yeah,
20,000 was achievable. So
I didn't think it was achievable.
no,
No,
okay.
10,000. I mean, if they did 10,000, which they did, was in December or uh, I, I didn't think 20,000 given their kind of the momentum and some of the factors that he mentioned before of what they face. One of the factors was that this brand was not, from a sales, marketing, and branding perspective, and the retail footprint, did not reach the customer as much as they wanted, and they had some issues with the battery swapping availability.
So
So
Firefly is
it's also
such an
very
important launch for them to show that they've learned from all these missteps. And I I just want Neo to do well. And I Li Bin is a likable CEO, and I like their cars. Uh, but it is.
and
Uh,
they just put out this 5 years of free battery swapping, 5 years zero interest financing, all the incentives that are placed in the market now, scrap trade in.
it
I,
should be also noted, Lay, that you can buy a Juniper in China for 0% financing for 3 years now.
3 years,
Eh,
right? Yeah.
So these non-price price cuts, and Juniper. I was wondering how long Juniper could sit out there without any incentive, and we found out it was a month.
Well, come at the end of April and May, that'll be extended.
Oh,
And
without
come June,
question. If
July,
they see it,
right?
if it's successful, it'll be extended for sure.
And if not, just put 2 more years onto it. 5 years zero financing. What the heck? Without cutting
So
prices, right? So
so that's free money.
yeah. Uh,
And
and
but I also feel that this is a preemptive strike because they know the U7 is coming. So they want to pull in as many sales as they can before the U7 comes, before all these new products come at the tail end of this year.
mm-hmm. And then Xpeng, I think, stood out because they kept on doing the 30,000 per month for 5 months. Um, more models
Which
coming out.
which we applaud them for that, but 30,000 is the floor they should be
Yeah,
selling.
yeah,
It's not this awesome number. It basically says we are still to be reckoned with. Now, if in December you and I have this conversation, we revisit it and say X, Y, and Z companies are on the rope. Guess who's going to get some of those sales from those companies that are losing steam? It's going to be Xpeng. You you know Neo with Anvo, maybe they can right the ship in the next 3 or 4 months, because what really matters is that Anvo corrects or course corrects by September.
yeah. And now they have a charging or a swapping guy or a power guy or whatever you want to call him running the show. I hope that's works out. But
So here's a couple things that I wanted to kind of bring up. So first of all, Taylor, good friend of ours, good friend of the show, he X'd. Let this sink in. BYD sold more cars in 1 month than Tesla
right,
sold in a quarter.
right,
This is
right.
the first quarter, so if they can continue to do that in Q2, Q3, very impressive.
I think they
But
will.
the fear is, I quote tweeted that the fear is warranted, because it is. And again, this has not much to do with politics. And taken in totality, BYD outselling them in a month, 0% financing for Juniper, more products coming. And on top of that, Nale, will there be backlash because Tesla is an American company in China?
That's the thing we're watching. But again, right? We if we do the apples to apples comparison, which is not, because you have one model that's doing everything versus, let's say, a BYD that covers possibly every segment that you can imagine with 2 dozen, 3 dozen models, and the volumes that are 3-4x per month than Tesla. Um,
With BYD, it allows you to hide weakness much easier than all eyes on one product, to your point.
yeah.
Because the Model Y, if it sneezes, it's going to be very well scrutinized. And, I've been quoted in at least a couple of articles about how Tesla's doing. Is it a sustained challenge to the brand? So, man, Tesla is not a growth company. I don't see them growing in vehicle sales. I don't see them growing in AI. I don't see them growing in robotaxi. They don't have a robotaxi. So if we're still betting on potential, does the potential now get cut in half? Because is that how we should look at it? Because the share price is down significantly. So if they continue to struggle in China and FSD doesn't have a very high attach rate to the vehicles that they do sell in China, is that a failure? Because how many, Adam Jonas basically he wrote a thing and he was like, oh, this is part of their transformation to an AI company. He's like, okay. Oh, goodness. I don't get it. But
One data, Model Y was the top selling model in March. So if that's
well,
consolation,
that's consistent because it was the
yeah,
number one vehicle sold in
we have
2024.
so many Model Y killers in China, but not one Model Y killer. That's the thing. That's why we say that. Yeah, I agree that the problems they're facing, that the headwinds is huge. But given that they've still be able to do this is.
The closest thing will be the U7.
And speaking of the U7, Xiaomi is facing their biggest crisis yet ahead of this launch.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
quite tragic, actually.
because of this tragic accident that happened last weekend, um, which has been, it's not an industry news anymore. It's a what do you call it? It's a societal news.
It's a social media thing.
Social media, um, because it's got all of the ingredients for traffic. You got Legion, you got Xiaomi, you got NOA, you got AEB, you got
You have a
car
death.
catching on fire. It's an EV. You got 3 young ladies that were driving the car to take a test, some kind of a test, and they perished in a, I don't know if, in an incident, or how they were killed, is whether it was on impact or whether it's because they couldn't get out of the car, and got burned inside. The the thing that Legion put out, right? He put out a statement, and he did say that he was very it was very sad, but in that statement he did not say sorry. He did not say we're sorry. See, that's a kind of a PR tactic, because if you do that, then you would admit to you have
Fault.
right. You that's your fault. So he just said, before any investigation uh, uh, results that come out, he can't really say that much more. But I think the other thing that I believe that this accident will be kind of a turning point is because of this bloodbath, not only on the price war, but the bloodbath on who has the best smart driving capabilities in China. And
Oh,
smart
I
driving
actually
for all which the the the, the younger drivers today, are they falling into false pretense that these smart driving capabilities are much better than they actually are? So these are all the questions that are it's not a Xiaomi problem. It may be an industry problem.
I
With
I actually think it's even more basic than that, Lay, because of the severity of the tragic accident. People died. Okay, so mistakes can happen. So the safety of the vehicle, or to your point, it's not clear. And I hope, and this is a weird thing to say, I hope that they weren't trapped in the car. I hope that, because that means that they were alive and in a burning car. That's
that remains a question,
and
mystery,
so
and we may
here
never find out.
this is not a Chinese EV thing. I think the specific part is the intelligent driving, but on the EV side, if the battery catches fire, are you able to quickly get out? These should be number one priority for every EV maker, because that is a serious challenge, serious issue. And then the second part is the intelligent driving being so widely offered now in China, and now BYD basically making it available to everyone in China.
Yeah,
So, wow, it is
uh,
there needs to be more protocol from a software standpoint to maybe be more conservative, because and the other thing too, and this has nothing to do with intelligent driving, is that the Su 7 can go 0 to 60 in like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. People aren't used to that. And if they do have a vehicle historically or traditionally and that could go really fast, it would take a second when you mashed on the pedal. Now it's instant. So there's going to be more accidents, because there's going to be less experienced drivers that can handle that type of torque, handle that type of acceleration. So what I'm hoping for is that these Chinese EV makers are doing the right thing from an R&D and from an engineering standpoint, but then the foreign automakers are learning and saying, we need to put these in place in Europe, in North America, so that we don't have these types of challenges or tragedies. Okay.
and it's also about educating, again, from the OEM perspective, educating the end consumers, the owners, about however you want to term this L2, the number of pluses you add after L2. At the end of the day, the driver maintains responsibility at all times. That's the definition of L2. Now, when you go to L3, well, right, Mercedes says they will be responsible under that condition if an accident happens. They're the only one so far, I think. So it's about these owners abusing the system. We see that kind of in both China and the US with FSD, of people, sleeping behind the wheels, and right, we see those videos come up, and
There's
it,
clear abuse in the
it's
United
yeah.
States. Clear
So
abuse.
uh, yeah, so that's why I think it could be a turning point of how, because it was a Xiaomi, because I mean the weight of Xiaomi, the name is so much more than, I think, besides Tesla or BYD, is so much more than other um,
And
brands.
here's something too, Lay, is that because let's say within the next 36 months, 3 years, okay, intelligent level 2 plus driving becomes pretty ubiquitous. Okay, so the driver monitoring systems need to be upgraded, generally speaking. Whether you're looking at the screen, whether you're holding onto the steering wheel, there needs to be, I don't know. I'm not a designer. I don't know what that balance is, that fine line is, because I don't want it to be too cumbersome. But when does the government take some responsibility and say, hey, we allowed this technology to really become ubiquitous, but we need to
which
put
I'm all for
more
it.
regulation
Yeah,
around.
and we found out personally ourselves last year of how it helps with driving
Yeah,
when we did the trip, right? I mean, we use that on what 90% of the time on highways.
probably more than
Correct.
90%, but
But
the
we
only
were
times we
paying
weren't using
attention.
it was in the city. So,
Yeah, also, but we were paying attention.
and there were two of us.
Yeah. So, uh, and I think sometimes maybe the younger drivers, I may be, um, thinking that they, in terms of abusing the system, that uh, they just think that it works better than you know
Well,
uh,
and
paying
yeah,
attention. Yeah.
I wouldn't call it abuse the system. I would call it too much trust.
Too much trust. Yeah.
And because I don't think the people in the Xiaomi were like, oh man, I don't need to look at anything. They were just probably overly trustworthy of the system, unfortunately. And the one thing that confused me, and this is also because I can't read Chinese obviously very well, is when we were driving together, I wasn't sure when I could use it or when I couldn't use it. It told me, or it told us, when we couldn't use it. Now, do we
Well,
need to educate
yes.
ourselves and say this district in Shenzhen or this district in Changsha, we can't use it? Because you and I just jumped in the car, turned it on, and recorded ourselves and or just kind of made observations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, the system back then, I think it was highway NGP. It was available on pretty much all the expressways
Yep.
at that time. So it just turned on. It just worked. If it doesn't work, that means the system recognizes it's not in that ODD. Which
Yes.
and now everybody's talking about pushing all this driving parking lot to parking lot functionality. The minute you sit in,
Which
you turn it
means
on.
point to point.
Yeah, it works, right? So, I mean that is only a small part of the bloodbath, but there's bloodbath on other features and functionalities.
When you say parking lot to parking lot, you're basically saying what FSD currently does in the United
Yeah,
States.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And Xiaomi was on this momentum. They're probably gonna do 30,000 in April. They should be able to do 30,000 in April. But I don't know. I mean, this action. The sad thing is, this is not the first time that it happened. It's happened to Neo before. It's happened to
Yes.
Ito. It's happened to I'm not
It
Tesla
will
many tons of
happen.
times.
It will happen.
It'll happen again.
There are 25 million cars
And then,
sold every year in China. It's going to happen.
and the other thing is, accidents happen all the time. But when you have those key words that I described before, it makes it into more significant national news, if not international news. And then, right, what did the driver do? How much responsibility did the driver have? No.
And this is where Lei Jun really needs to be careful.
Yeah.
Because you're kicking dirt effectively, potentially on somebody's grave by blaming them.
Yeah.
And that Chinese social media, Chinese consumers will not like that.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Ehan got commercial license to do unmanned eVTOL in Guangdong. What do you feel is the significance globally of that?
I think the commercialization, given what He Xiaopeng
Let me stop you there, Lei.
Yeah.
What is the significance, and are you ready to try it out yourself?
I'm not sure if I'm ready to try it out myself. Maybe someone else in it with me, I try it, but not alone.
Is it Igaren, or is there two people?
I don't know.
So eVTOL is electric vertical takeoff and landing, and EHang is one of the
Yeah,
largest companies. They're based in southern China, where weather is either rainy or hot. It's very predictable. And just like autonomous vehicles, although eVTOLs are much simpler, think of an unmanned drone. Effectively, there's lidar, there's sensors, but with autonomous vehicles, there are so many other things going on the road. In the air, it the the avoidance of hitting objects is much easier. That said, you're in the air. So with these particular eVTOLs, they go up as high as 2,000 feet, and they've received commercial licenses to pay for paid services
sure,
now.
sure. So the caveat is how far they travel, how far they can travel, how far they are allowed to travel. My understanding, given
Where
what
they can travel,
yeah, my understanding is given what He Xiaopeng has shared with their own work is the distance is not that great. Maybe 20
right?
to 30 kilometers at most at the beginning. Maybe in the southern, let's say Guangdong, Guangzhou, Shenzhen areas that always have these things, newer things. We saw I saw the drone delivery of Meituan, right? And those things happen first in those regions on a demo or trial basis before they're actually expanded to much more greater coverage and greater distance. So yeah, I mean, there's some caveat, but that's where China is leading in terms of applications and commercialization.
But like, here's the thing: I think people don't understand how much control over from a aviation standpoint the Chinese military controls.
Yeah,
And so when people think or read that there's a commercial license approval, they think, okay, China's going to have all these eVTOLs flying all over the place. It's very, very
yeah,
limited.
hmm
What uh, uh, a number that I'd heard, 80%, 90%, or 80 to 90%, the Chinese military controls that airspace.
yeah,
And this, most people that travel frequently from Hong Kong, Shanghai, or Beijing know this. The on time or departure rates in those three, and it's more to Shanghai and Beijing than Hong Kong, but the departure on time departure is like 50%. Oftentimes, you're sitting in Beijing airport and you're not taking off on time. There, I
yeah. I
mean,
mean, yeah, that was the case when we were there. When right,
one out of two
yeah,
times you're going to be delayed some reason, and they don't tell you. They don't tell you anything.
yeah,
So I almost feel for these Chinese eVTOL companies to be successful, they need to immediately go international,
yeah. And
like
He
Middle
Xiaopeng,
East. I'm sorry.
no, I was saying He Xiaopeng at the China EV 100 forum, he talked nothing but their eVTOL, and he was saying that no one single airline company or airplane company produce more than 1,000 units per year, and he
Right.
wants to do that.
But
Uh,
so the Middle East seems pretty open, but again, the Middle East is a bunch of deserts, a couple major cities, a bunch of desert. So that's where the battery range might be the limiting factor. Whereas if you're in Guangdong, I mean, there's huge areas of countryside, but I don't know if you're in city center, you're probably not going to see any major flights for quite some time, or maybe ever.
Yeah, so I was
And
saying, the things that are commercialized first, how much you pay, maybe a couple of thousand RMB to go 1 or 2 kilometers.
the other thing too, Lei, is that each province, each major city might have a national champion or a local champion. So EHang is not going to be. You're not going to see it in Beijing. You're not going to see it in Shanghai and all these other cities. It's going to be like robo
Every
taxis.
every
The
industry
local,
is like that. You talk about
yeah.
robotics, you talk about EVs, talk about taxis. Yeah, it's the same playbook.
So, but symbolically, it's important because it gives the Chinese government mianzi or face
Mm-hmm.
that they're able to say
Sure,
we're the first to offer
sure.
this. But it's a huge step. It's more symbolic than anything else, and I think you're going to start to see people on social media in the next few months post videos. But yeah, pretty cool. The last thing I
Uh,
wanted to talk about, Lei, and get your thoughts on are we went from BYD launching a 1 megawatt charger to now having
three, three.
3. Sangha. And Huawei's is more commercial, it sounds like, for commercial trucks. So a lot we don't ever talk about it, so our listeners might not know, but swapping is also really gaining popularity among commercial trucking. And so Huawei's megawatt charger is up to 1.44 megawatts. Zeekr has one that's 1.2 megawatts.
Yeah,
So whether, and this is what I'm not sure of, I don't know if you've read anything. Did BYD's announcement force Zeekr's and Huawei's to announce early, or was it always going to be the case? But in the span of 2 or 3 weeks,
uh,
we basically increased by 300%, 200%. So
that's the bloodbath I was talking about. The smart driving bloodbath, and then the
ugh.
fast flash charger bloodbath. Always someone that comes out with, "Oh, we're the greatest," and then there's a bunch of others coming out and say, "Oh, we're even greater." It's always
Well, and,
going to be
and
like
and
that.
this is the challenge with technology for the Chinese
Uh,
government, because the technology always leads the regulatory environment, or the policies that drive how things can be used, where they can be used, how often, things like that. So because when we're talking megawatt chargers, we're talking a lot of BTUs. Like it's got to be super hot when that level of, and with BYD, it was clear we're going to have an ESS or a battery or an energy storage system connected to the megawatt
yeah,
charger. I'm not as clear on the Huawei system, although they did say that they're going to unveil it in 2 weeks. So, which is right around the Shanghai Auto Show. So,
yeah.
but yeah, man, I that's all I have today, man. Just it's probably going to take a little bit of time to process on the tariffs, but the Chinese EVs. Let me summarize, and you add your color to this. It doesn't really affect the Chinese electric vehicles that much, uh,
No,
from a
no.
finished goods standpoint. Uh, but one thing I did also want to mention is that it seems like the EU is now back at the table talking about
Yeah, we were talking about
tariffs
that,
with the
right?
Chinese.
Yeah, the continued talk of a possible some kind of resolution,
And
uh,
so
and that's
the
in sharp contrast to this punches thrown between U.S. and China, right? Eh,
I the last thing that China needs right now is, and this is where they have to, I think, tiptoe delicately, is to look like they're flooding other markets with product as a substitute for the US market, because that's going to create and just initiate alarm bells all over the world. And I think there is going to be a potential for a global trade war, uh, because I think there's going to be some countries that want to protect certain industries. There's going to be domestic industries, is what I mean, where they still feel that it employs a lot of people. And so we always knew there was this loophole, okay? Because you and I talked about it 2 or 3 years ago, where Chinese suppliers were entering Mexico, investing in Mexico. So we talked
And then
about this.
the production moving, some of the production, lots of production moving from China to Southeast Asia. Vietnam, right? There's a lot to talk about Vietnam getting how much?
46%.
46%. Were, I mean, all the, right, the Nike companies like Nike and, apparel, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, where the production moving over there. Now they're getting hit.
So they pointed to 3 countries. They pointed to Russia getting 0 tariffs, Iran getting very little tariffs, and one other
and then and
country.
then
I forget.
and then Mexico and Canada, they're not included in the this reciprocal tariffs.
Yeah.
So that, right, Shine Bomb's like, it's kind of a win for us. So and there's still that USMCA rule that kind of gives some relief if you meet those rules for
Yes.
for
So
parts.
maybe we anticipate that there will be a revised USMCA by the end of this year. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't, because if these tariffs are in place for permanently, then it makes for a painful next few years for us.
Yeah, and I think the China's 34 retaliatory tariff is quite a statement. I think from a point of view of what kind of stance China takes, um, to kind of to respond to the U.S., to Trump, and we'll go from there. Uh, the stocks, like yesterday, I think lost like 3 trillion in value. Today, it's going back up a little bit, but oh man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyways, there's a lot of articles. Some of them are pretty interesting. Lay, one of them I highlighted in the newsletter this week about a woman who runs a factory with a brother in Jiangsu, I think, who had befriended a customer in Arizona who was
yeah,
selling
right. These
teddy bears.
stories.
And you worry about the big companies, but you also clearly worry about these mom and pops that are just
Shots.
doing everything they can
Yeah,
to make a living.
yeah,
And you know, we got addicted to really cheap stuff. I will always remember my foreign friends that I knew in Beijing when they would come to New York City or when they would
yeah,
come to California. They would always go to the outlet malls.
yeah.
You know, I think there's one in Yonkers, just outside of New York City. And they were like, man, stuff is so cheap in the United States. And to me and you, it's just what things cost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad that I bought this Hyundai 3 years ago. I didn't have to pay more, and the hybrid is great. And it's an imported model. Now that I have it, I enjoy it. I don't have to worry about buying a car, which a lot of people worry about in the
I
U.S.
have to
right
worry
now. They can't
about,
pay for it. You worry, yeah. The cost of financing is prohibitively high, even for a Tesla. Even they have some kind of zero financing. Maybe that ended at the end of March, but to lease or to finance a vehicle in the U.S. right now is just crazy. Uh,
The cost of money is very high right now.
whereas in
So
China, it's right, as we know.
so a lot of economists and analysts say that China is going to offer more stimulus to encourage domestic consumption, but I've it almost feels like they're painted into a corner a little bit because trade between the United States is going to get really, really dicey. And because of the tariffs the United States or we put on other countries, their ability to buy things from China decreases. And so it becomes this vicious cycle, unfortunately. Anyways, I'm not an economist. I just am very
Yeah, I
interested
mean,
in all these
our
things.
own
So
perspectives putting the consumer hat on, right? So also,
yeah,
uh,
and maybe you and I know a little bit more than the average viewer or listener about how China might retaliate on certain things.
yeah,
So, but anyways, hey, I don't have anything else. Oh no, I do. I was in Ann Arbor last week. I took my boys, or my wife and I took the boys to watch a University of Michigan lacrosse game. Went had lunch downtown right before the game.
yeah.
Huge Tesla protest downtown.
Same here. I
The
shared a picture.
newsletter picture, that
Yeah,
was downtown Ann Arbor.
yeah. Also, the one I shared that said "Fire Musk" was just town next to us.
So it is definitely not
Yeah,
this media driven theme. It's really happening. It's
it is.
coordinated too.
Yeah, it's close to us.
And so I could foresee a scenario where there might be one or two Chinese people on social media say, "Hey, let's not buy Teslas anymore in China." Seriously, right? You could see that, right?
It could happen to anybody.
Yeah. So
Look at what happened to Mega. But those type of
that
things. Right?
that was like corporate
That
espionage kind
happened
of
a year
driven, I
ago.
think. So,
This time, I mean,
that's such a cool car. But anyways, hey, cool man. I'll talk to you on DMs. All right, and
yeah,
it's
and
starting to get a little nicer outside. So,
yeah, definitely
uh,
60s.
um,
Finally,
and we're gonna see each other in a couple of weeks back
yeah.
in the
In,
high, the hole.
in,
Hey,
back in the well, we call it the 23 was when Shanghai shocked the world, right?
uh, can you? Maybe you don't know the story behind this, but the the plates. Obviously Jing is the Beijing the Jing,
Mm-hmm.
but in Shanghai the characters Hu
Who?
Hu.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell the audience why it's not Shanghai, one of those characters, but it's Hu?
Well, that's I don't. I'm not a historian, but it's
I put you on
different
the
for all
spot.
the no. For all the different provinces, it's also they have special
Yes.
one character designations. Let's say abbreviation or one character that defines this province. I don't know the historical significance of it, but it's not like Beijing is Jing and Shanghai is Shang or something.
Hi.
Yeah,
No, my wife told me the story, but I forgot.
yeah,
Anyways, hey,
yeah.
good morning, good afternoon, everyone. We will talk with you all next week.
Likewise. Bye bye.